Hey guys, welcome to our Kingdom Hearts 4 Top 10 Worlds video. Today, I'm joined by Player L.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Don't mention it, man. Glad to have you here. We will be discussing what our top worlds are for the next installment of the Kingdom Hearts franchise. We'll be listing off each world, not in any specific order, but we will explain why we personally want said world for the next game, and how we think it'll thematically fit in the story, along with Sora's situation currently, and even his situations prior, as well as his feelings, so let's dive in. Number 1. Black Cauldron. Now, why specifically would I want this world even though it's the oldest one on the list? Well, that's mostly because of the villain, which is the Horn King. He has such a dark tone that I think Kingdom Hearts needs, and we could use a good old classic Disney villain, just like how we used to have back in the day. We don't usually see that anymore though, unless it's a rehashed Disney villain. Most of the ones that do end up coming back pretty much just die in the end, so I think adding new ones would just be fresh on the eyes, and Disney could also do this way as bringing back an old film and put new eyes on their older projects. The whole death theme that the Horn King conveys, along with the movie itself, could really fit with the situation that's happening in Kingdom Hearts 4. And thematically, with the characters in the story of the Black Cauldron, Tartan, the main character of the story, is left with his friend Groogy. Knowing what happens to him in the movie, he sets himself inside of the cauldron, essentially giving away his life. Tartan is rash, and he will be willing to trade even his own life, just as Groogy did for him. Kind of like how Sora did for his friends, and how he did for Kairi and Remind, and vice versa. This sentiment Sora could give to Tartan could help him make the right choices going forward, to be more confident on his journey and to not take such drastic measures. As well as the topic of the Horn King, he's very similar of that of the Lich Sora had to face to save his friends before. And this could give a huge edge in Tartan's favor with Sora helping him. And finally, for speaking on the enemies of this world, I feel like the Horn King could use the Heartless since the movie deals with the themes of darkness very deeply. And that is why I want the Black Cauldron within Kingdom Hearts. More of a simple-ended story, but it does the job.
Meet the Robinsons is one of my favorite childhood movies, and the reasons why I'd want it as a world in Kingdom Hearts 4 would be how it involves time travel and how Lewis's situation also mirrors how Sora is in his current predicament. Lewis being stuck in the future with no way to get back, as well as to go find his mom, Sora can somewhat relate to his situation and how he's trying to get back home. Sora could show Lewis how that even though he may want to see his mom and be a family with her, which he never had, it could put him in a place where he doesn't want to be and he could get stuck in that situation. And that the future also has more in store than just reflecting on the past and what could have been. As a playable world, I think an interesting mechanic would be if Sora could go into the past and future versions of the world where Sora could interact with the environment in the past that can affect the future. Maybe some side quests that take place in both time periods. For enemies, the Heartless make the most sense for this world, because they're the only enemies we know of that can time travel, and they could have an effect on the world in the past and future. Maybe the Heartless would create temporal anomalies in the past that affect the future, and Sora would have to fix them so that the future won't be threatened or won't develop properly. And that's why I want to see Meet the Robinsons in Kingdom Hearts 4.
El Dorado. I know what you're thinking. Final, this movie did horrible in box office, but hear me out. The reason I'd like this film as a world is because the setting it takes place in and the character situations that line up with Sora's now. How exactly did they line up? Well, from the beginning of this movie, Tulio and Miguel both have like minds, but midway through the film, they both end up having different perspectives on life. Sora's in the same shoes as the both of them, and Sora's heart screams for it to be at home with the people that he loves. But at the same time, with where he is at now, he doesn't just want to leave, and that's because he's fighting to save the people within all the other worlds. He's stuck and he has to make a choice, and I feel like if Sora views the debate between Tulio and Miguel, it can help him see the struggles he's having within himself. And the last thing that I want to talk about within this film is the villain. But not only just the villain, I want to talk about the enemy type, and I believe that nobody's would fit the best here is because El Dorado is a completely forgotten location to thought to be existed inside of this movie, and I just think Khan would fit as a very good villain within Kingdom Hearts in general because he acts a lot like Xehanort, wanting to have a complex and wanting to rule things in a very specific way and act kind of godlike. And that's why I would love to see El Dorado within Kingdom Hearts 4.
Treasure Planet is another one of those really great childhood movies that I watched, and I still love to this day. And as a world, it had been sought after for so long and had been considered for being made a world but never came to be. As for why I want this movie as a world, it mainly comes down to it being a fan favorite in how I think it would be interesting to see how Sora would interact with the characters like Jim and Silver, and Sora could give Jim advice on trying to open up to people but also knowing who to trust. Jim being closed off from most people, but still trying to be a good person, and how Silver has more good in his heart than how he is with the other pirates, would make for great companions throughout the journey. And for the gameplay, I can see there being the possibility of doing missions on the voyage through the galaxy, like scouting surrounding space, like asteroids, moons, and various other places along the voyage. Maybe a mini-game with flying one of the small boats, like how Jim and Silver did while they were testing one out. And once on Treasure Planet, it can be a lot more open and expansive, so you can explore the strange planet to your heart's content. As for the enemies of the world, I can imagine seeing Pirate Heartless there, but maybe even the Unversed, since they would be surrounded by a large amount of greed considering the movie's plot. The reasons why, though, it mainly comes down to it being a fan-favorite movie that sadly didn't turn out to be as successful as other movies before and after its release, and how a lot of fans that are fond of it would want to be in Kingdom Hearts to give it another chance in the spotlight, and that logic applies to me as well.
Another fan-favorite movie, Atlantis, The Lost Empire, a timeless movie that was brought in the early 2000s, a theme of finding a new land and creatures of the unknown. I think there's a lot that Kingdom Hearts can fit within this film. Imagine taking on an escape sequence with Sora fending off the Leviathan from all the subs trying to head its way to Atlantis, or having a reaction command for Sora to break down huge boulders in the way in the caves under the ocean. I like it for how adventurous the world building could be, by the city, to the ocean, to the depths of the caves, to Atlantis itself. There is so much they could develop in this world that I think would be so unique in its own right. And we could also find a way to travel around the world using the Atlanteans' technology to fly around Atlantis itself, just to see how grand and how large Atlantis actually is as a whole entire world. The plot device that they could use for this film is using the heart of Atlantis, and I think they could really relate on one another with the Keyblade and the Heart of Atlantis. The Heart of Atlantis was to protect the entire place from any evil to come inside, and it was a barrier. But, as just like the Keyblade wielders, they had the Keyblade to protect them from things such as the darkness or even other people. But in the wrong hands, such as the darkness itself, trying to attain Kingdom Hearts, or anyone else trying to attain the Heart of Atlantis, would cause catastrophic destruction. And with such power comes great responsibility. Commander Lyle tried taking the Heart of Atlantis to gain more power for himself and as well as use it for military purposes. And I feel like if Sora was around, he'd be able to tell these people that there is some people to trust and there's people to not trust, because he could tell within the darkness in people's hearts, considering how far he's come when he has fought with either people like Xehanort or the organization. And this goes into more of what I was going to talk about with the characters or enemies that Sora would end up fighting. He could fight either the Atlanteans in the beginning because they've seen them as an enemy, or he could also fight nobodies since they are considered a place that was not thought to be existed, just like how my take is on El Dorado. So that is why I would like for Atlantis, the Lost Empire, to be within Kingdom Hearts.
After watching Coco recently, it became very obvious to me that this movie would actually be a very perfect fit for Kingdom Hearts. Since the plot of the movie revolves around the world of the living and the world of the dead, and how Miguel is trapped in the world of the dead perfectly represents how Sora is now in reality and can't get back there yet. And for the plot of the movie, I can see Sora being conflicted on helping Miguel out with pursuing his dream of music, while also wanting to help out his family and keep him safe and get him back home, and maybe helping both parties realize how they should support each other and not forget how much they care about each other. For the world's enemies, I can see them using Heartless or Nightmares that resemble the spirit guides in the movie. More so the Nightmares, since they have more of a resemblance to the spirit guides, looks and colors being exaggerated. And maybe the world's gimmick would be that you'd have the Dream Eaters come back and possibly some new ones introduced to give you a ride for transportation across the land of the dead, and maybe allow you to find different things that you wouldn't have before, like items, inaccessible rooms, and other secrets in the world. And those are the reasons why I think that Coco would be a really great pick for Kingdom Hearts 4.
Moving on to Moana, a very beloved film for the new generation. Speaking of which, as the time of me recording this, the second one is actually already in production. I think it's very clear cut to why this world should be inside of Kingdom Hearts, but this film has darkness taking over Motunui, Moana's home island, along with the rest of the world itself. It's a perfect theme for KH, but what would the world's ultimate goal be, aside from saving it from the darkness? Well, that would be to help Moana to see that she isn't alone and that she could do what she believes in if she sets her mind to it. Because halfway through the film, Moana ends up having self-doubt and she doesn't believe in herself anymore. And I think Sora is well capable in that department, considering what Sora has been through in the past, and he can end up telling her about his experiences and what he has been through. And if she ends up hearing it, she can end up getting more confidence in that if Sora can do it, so can I. I also just feel like Moana and Sora have such relatability between each other because of the contrast that end up happening between this film and between Kingdom Hearts 3. Her grandmother ends up giving her a confidence speech about how she is the chosen one and that she can do it and she could save the island and she could save Te Fiti. Just like in Kingdom Hearts 3 where Sora had self-doubt in himself and he didn't think that he was capable enough or he wasn't enough to be able to save any of his friends or save the world because the darkness was impending and it ended up taking all of his friends. And the person that gave him the speech and confidence talk was Riku, and he ended up getting that confidence to do it and save the world. And before talking about this world, I do want to show some missing link CBT screenshots that I have of a world that looks very akin to a world that looks like Moana, or it could be Lilo and Stitch. But there is a Heartless that has some tattoo designs on it that are like from the people of Moana and indigenous culture. I also just think that Sora and Maui would end up getting along very well just because Sora would end up liking all the challenges that he ends up giving him, and Maui would probably view Sora as very different compared to the rest of the people that are just normal, and Sora has the fighting capabilities to keep up with him. And as an example where Sora could show off his fighting capabilities to Maui is when they end up going to the monster realm to get back his fishing hook back from the massive crab and some of the other monsters that are there. And that leads me into this. What enemy type should end up being within Moana? Now this is really easy. You'd probably say the Heartless just because of the whole entire thing with darkness, but I also want to add just like some of the monsters that are just inside of the monster realm in general, whether they could be Heartlessified, if that makes sense, or just having them as their plain old selves. I mean, it'd be very unique and very different. And some other worlds in the past and other previous Kingdom Hearts titles, such as Birth by Sleep, when you go into Maleficent's castle and you end up fighting some of the monsters that are makeshift birds, I think would just be very, very interesting. In a story old as time and as simple as light versus darkness can be, Moana is still a princess at the end of the day, and during Kingdom Hearts 3, we only had 4 princesses, which were Kairi, Rapunzel, Elsa, and Anna. And we only know 4 out of the new 7 hearts, and it would be really, really great if we could just add her as an addition and just including with the facts of all the light and darkness themes that are within this world already. And that's why we would like to see Moana in Kingdom Hearts 4.
As for this pick, I thought about choosing something a bit more interesting for a world, and that being The Rise of the Guardians. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh, Disney doesn't own that movie. It was made by DreamWorks. They can't use that. And under normal logic, you'd be right, but being the massive company that Disney is, and how they've also done business with their parent company, Viacom, and how they've done deals with them in the past, I don't think there would be very much of a problem. As for the movie, it surprisingly fits really well with Kingdom Hearts' narrative. A bunch of your classic children's characters like Jack Frost, Santa, Easter Bunny, Sandman, and the Tooth Fairy also protect the children of the world from any darkness and fear that threatens them. And this contrasts really well with Sora and the other Kingdom Hearts characters being Guardians of Light and how they protect the worlds from darkness. And since Jack, at the start of the movie, isn't all for being a guardian, I can see Sora trying to help teach him how to be a guardian and to find his purpose in that. For the enemies of this world, it's obviously the nightmares. The whole movie is based around the boogeyman, Pitch Black, creating the nightmares and using them to take over the world, so using the Kingdom Hearts nightmares would be a perfect fit for this world. And as for the more of the world and the gameplay, you could have Sora explore the Guardians' different domains or homes, I don't really know what to call them, and help each one of them with their own various tasks, like helping the Tooth Fairy collect teeth, the Easter Bunny making and hiding eggs, and the Sandman spreading dreams. And that's my reasoning of why I want to see Rise of the Guardians in Kingdom Hearts 4.
The world of Encanto. While I know this film did very well, it doesn't have a true villain, which would make sort of a problem for Kingdom Hearts to take on, but I digress, and I think there's a lot deeper themes than just all about what's the next thing to face physically. This movie is more about family and friendship though, that does come a long way within the Kingdom Hearts franchise, and that's actually why I want this as a world. Not to go down into the rabbit hole of who Sora's parents are, just because of a certain game that we'll be speaking about bloodlines soon enough, but the theme is of being close to ones that you love, and I think Sora and Maribel can see that eye to eye. I also think that Sora and Maribel can relate to the labeled, quoted, outcast of the group, and it doesn't feel as special or is told that they aren't as special while the rest are. While Sora acknowledges that he is in his own right, but he is glad to be a part of something much bigger. And I think if Sora gave guidance to Maribel, it could lift her up in her situation she is having with herself and her family. It would also be very cool to see as a plot device if Bruno showed Sora his future and what's supposed to happen to him in depth. Since Bruno has the power to see into people's futures, this could either scare Sora or make him feel better to whatever he has going on within the main story. Whatever he's got going on, he could also view this and could change his fate, or maybe he's going to be able to go back home, or maybe a worst case scenario, he sees himself in that he's not going to go back home, and he needs to push himself to make a better decision so he can. With the film being so much about Maribel trying to fix the bond that she had lost with her family, Sora could also share to her what kinds of bonds that he had almost lost throughout his own journey, with like how he had lost Kairi and Riku, and how he did all that he could in order to get them back, even if it was hard, or even if he had differences between one another. And not only that, but let's just excuse the whole Sora can open anything with his Keyblade, because we could just say that Sora opens Maribel a door to get her own power, and she doesn't need to go through her predicament. Sora is someone that will help guide, but he would let the person figure out on their own how to resolve their own issues, and that would defeat the purpose of the film and the world. Something I want to go back and touch upon is that how Encanto doesn't necessarily have a villain, and I do think that there is a manifestation of darkness within Encanto, since things in the family are rooted from deep feelings, and the light that makes the Madrigals live is the candle, and what gives them their powers and their bond. And now that I mention this, I think it wouldn't hurt if we also use some unverse in this world because of the realm and how devastating emotions can affect the house as a whole and the entire town. And just the last note, and out of my own opinion, I'd like for at the end of the world, even though Sora's not a Madrigal, he'd be able to open up a door and he'd be able to get either a new power or something that is a gift for him for helping out Maribel in the end. But these are my reasons why I would like Encanto to be in Kingdom Hearts 4. Hey guys, before getting into the last world, I want to talk about some honorable mentions because you guys are probably wondering, where's Star Wars, Marvel Avengers, Zootopia, Jungle Book, DuckTales, Gargoyles, Lady and the Tramp, I don't know. Any of these films, man, or any of these shows. I only wanted to sway a bit differently from all of this because if I didn't, then you guys would have probably been bored in the first 5 minutes or less. So I ended up deciding to change a lot of the stuff and made a lot of the stuff fit, because it just sounded like a good idea in the grand scheme of things. I don't think that any of these worlds don't belong in Kingdom Hearts that are as honorable mentions. That's why they are honorable mentions. I just think that it would have been a boring video if I just ended up throwing a bunch of popular ones in here. That's why me and Player L ended up choosing Treasure Planet and Atlantis specifically as one of our fan favorite movies that we would have thrown in here. And since we both love Treasure Planet and Atlantis the most, we decided to go 1 for 1 on that. So if your favorite world isn't on this list, don't worry. I probably would love it to be in Kingdom Hearts. It's just I don't have all the necessary means to fit it within this video because it's already been taking so long to get this video to come out.
For my last pick, I'm still going to keep it a bit controversial, and I'm going to go with How to Train Your Dragon. How to Train Your Dragon is one of the best franchises out there, and I think that one of these movies could work really well for Kingdom Hearts. I mainly am going to talk about the second movie just for the sake of keeping it simple. As for the world and gameplay, I can imagine that it could be a lot like the Pirates of the Caribbean world in Kingdom Hearts 3, where we could explore different islands and land masses around Berk. But instead of just boats, there's also dragons that Sora could ride, which would actually work pretty well, considering that in Pirates of the Caribbean in Kingdom Hearts 3, Sora rides on a flying Heartless in a boss fight, so I think it could be easily implemented and expanded on. Also, I can imagine dragon taming and customization could be a possibility, since I don't think they could have Sora just fly one dragon, since the whole shtick of these movies are about riding them, so being able to have multiple dragons would be awesome. And also, it's friggin' dragons! It's awesome! Who wouldn't want to see Sora riding a dragon into danger's jaws, fighting bosses and stuff? As for the story, I could imagine Sora relating a lot to Hiccup, and how he wants to explore the worlds and find new lands, new people, and new dragons. However, he could also try to be a voice of reason alongside Hiccup's friends and family in taking responsibility and leading his people. And maybe in the second half of the movie's plot, they could have Sora better help Hiccup and tell him the bonds that he makes with his friends, including Toothless, can't be broken, which could then lead into Hiccup breaking the control that the Alpha Dragon has over Toothless. The potential for this series being a world is pretty high, and I would love it if they decided to put How to Train Your Dragon in Kingdom Hearts 4.
And that's it, guys. That is our top 10 worlds for Kingdom Hearts 4. Tell us how you like it. Tell us in the comment section about what worlds you'd like to see in Kingdom Hearts 4. And you guys stay awesome.